Good evening and welcome to the Safari. You've just heard a warthog hum the intro song. And not as melodic as Pumbaa or Timon from The Lion King, obviously. This is the forum. This is the four of us. There's myself, there's Shane below me. There is Andy to this side. There is Ray down there. See, Ray, I can do this. And then there's me, of course, Phil Case, your host. Good evening. Welcome along to this week's Party Political Broadcast on behalf of whoever you like. So we'll see what cause we're going to be back in this week as we get into it. Of course, it is the forum. There's 4 topics. There used to be all the various different names we used to call basically a podcast. But since we're on the television now, on the YouTubes and on the internets, we decided to rock and roll with this. So. I guess in the heat of everything that's been going on, it would be remiss of me to not mention what date are we on? We're on the 24th of June. Okay. So we've got 9 days left. And of course, the steps for Sienna has been going on right the way through the month. Anything that's bought on the website, there'll be, anything that's bought, particularly the Sienna stuff, there's a contribution going towards it. Any of the super chats that come in, all that money goes towards the Sienna steps as well. There's the Eventbrite link, which is somewhere on the side. I'm sure Andy will try to open a bit. But the Eventbrite, you can get on, buy a ticket, and all that money, of course, goes along to it. So if you can, or if you haven't, or if payday is coming up or something and you can spare a few quid, please do it. We're trying to give this girl the best chance and help the family get the best chance for this girl as she grows up with regards to the conditions she's suffering with at the moment. Okay, so that's the bit, the good bit that we want to get out of it. Now onto the rest of what we do so brilliantly, which is talk absolute nonsense. So tonight we have 4 topics, 4 very different topics. First topic up is going to be around homophones and armbands. The second topic is going to be who we think is going to win the Euros. So we can come back to all the questions around the Danes and the Belgians and the English and the Scottish and all the lads that are still in it as to who we think is going to win it. Third topic then is talk about the refereeing, and VAR. So many of our lads have been moaning because they hated football and VAR had ruined the whole thing, yet they're all praising the refs and the VAR. So I'm completely confused. It's like they've all got VAR in the brain or something. So it's co-VAR or whatever it is. And then we round up with other sports we'll be watching over the summertime. So with that, I want to...
Ray is just making an observation there. Ray looks like he's recreating a holiday photo from 1983.
Ray is coming away from Pontons.
How does that look like that?
It's just the sofa and the light.
It is the light. It's like a really old photograph. Yeah. And the stripy t-shirt that everyone had when they were growing up.
His son kissed face as well. It's just like
yeah.
Because
we never wore any sun factor on holidays when we were kids.
No. There was no such thing. You remember Only Fools and Horses and Rodney falls asleep under the tannin bed. That's Dicko to me.
To be fair, Ray, I have to say, what Pontons have you gone to do the show from this week? Is the Clonetly one, is it?
No, it's Scandinavia. Dublin's being transported into Scandinavia for one day, so I'm now live in Scandinavia. There's an unbelievable amount of daylight for 10 past 10, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, look, to be fair, we were just mentioning it before we came on. It is, of course, the longest day of the year if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. So anyone that's listening to the Southern Hemisphere, good morning. And it's our longest day of the year. But unusually, Finland, who lost tonight, they were beaten by Belgium. They're going through their no night, so they don't it's the longest day for the last 3 months. Imagine, Andy, can you imagine if you woke up in the morning and it was the same light that it is when you go to bed at night, and you aren't locked out of your head or anything like that, and it's not the thing. Like, how would you be able to deal with constant daylight? Would it wreck your head?
I would wreck my head, yeah. I think I just during that time of the year I wouldn't go to sleep. I'd stay awake, and then in the winter when it's the opposite, I'd just go to sleep.
You'd hibernate.
Yeah. Would that work? Would you eventually adjust to that, do you think?
Yeah,
sleep in the winter, stay awake all summer.
Would you reckon though, if everyone had hibernated in the winter like that, right? That then half the stuff that went on over the last 12 months would have been a lot easier. Like if we'd hibernated, think about lockdowns and stuff were a perfect opportunity for us all to hibernate. Had they said on Christmas Day, right, lads, that's it. Longest day of the year. You've done your drink and the whole lot. This is going to be a shit show for a couple of months. Let's hibernate.
Yeah,
right.
And just put a load of nuts beside your bed.
Yeah. And just water and nuts. Would you go for it?
Yeah, I actually would. Yeah, it'd be great.
How many pods a day? How many pods a day would you do then when you came out of hibernation? Because you'd have to catch up.
Yeah, we'd have to do 2 pods a day.
Yeah,
there'd be 2 forums on a Monday.
You'd run out of topics, wouldn't you?
Yeah. No, I think it'd be good. Yeah, all day brightness, all day and night brightness. Mad. Does it even get a little bit dark at all?
No. It's like, do you see what it's like at the moment? It's brighter than that.
At 2 a.m.
Yeah. Like 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going out and it's like that. Shane, you're a man who sees the early part of the morning all the time. So for you, what is this fun? Is this easier for you to get up in the morning time, or is it harder? What is it like for you?
No, it's easier. Yeah, it's easier to get up in the mornings. In the summertime, always easier to get up in the mornings. I'm not as much of an outdoors person now as you, Phil. But I work out in the open, so it's much easier in the summer than the freezing cold winters. Halfway of leaving the gaff. No, Jesus, no.
So this is your weather. This is your time of year.
Yeah,
excellent. It's the classic. It's the
weather show.
Yeah, it's the most
Daytrippers. Martin King.
It's Martin King. There you are now, Ray, in your cabin there in Pontins. What weather do you like?
And do you like the brightness?
Do you like the brightness, do you? And does your missus like the brightness now, or would she be more for the darkness? Which would she be more in favour of? Right. Look, I want to move along. First serious topic of the evening. Andy, you were taken aback initially by the idea that UEFA would have a probe into the armband that Manuel Neuer was wearing for the Germans. And of course, the UEFA have subsequently dropped it. And it probably leads on to a bit of a bigger discussion, which we've been involved in over the last couple of weeks. But this summer, anyway, it seems politics and football seem to have had a much heavier mix than has been over the last few years. So, look, I'll let you lead away where you're coming from on this one, and let's see where we can go with it.
Well, initially I thought this was going to be a great topic because it just took me by real surprise that would sort of thing would be investigated in the first place. So I thought it'd be a really good opportunity to bash UEFA, as we love to do. But yeah, yesterday UEFA, with the help and hand of the media, sent social media into a massive frenzy over a letter to sent to the German FA when they were informed that an investigation was to take place into Manuel Neuer wearing a rainbow armband. And the matter is now being closed, as the armband was seen as a positive symbol of support and equality. But what did they think it was initially? Like, why were they like, did it? Do we know? Like, what was the problem? Was it what was the point of making a big deal out? Because all that's happened, it's brought out all the lunatics and the bigots and everything else and the homophobes saying that it's politics and football. And as we know, equality at this stage is not politics; it's equality. It's about human rights and everyone being good to each other. So I don't know how many times that needs to be said. And UEFA publicly support the Pride celebrations with different things. They tweet about it. They run campaigns. The stadiums and all get coloured in Pride. So I don't know why that complaint, which is seemingly came from the Hungarian FA or something, I don't know why that wasn't just completely inadmissible and just binned out and told to fuck off on their merry way back to wherever that complaint came from. It never had to be made a deal of altogether at all, I think.
Ray, I don't know how well up to date you are with the Hungarian political situation as it stands at the moment. But as a quick run through at the top level, we won't go too deep into it. But Viktor Orban is is deeply unlikable person, very heavily leaning towards right wing politics. Doesn't like immigrants, doesn't like homosexuals, doesn't like anyone that wants to be involved in the equality crusade. And given that UEFA have been leaning towards moving the final away from Wembley and the semi-finals away from Wembley because Boris Johnson has cacked the bed and let the Delta variant run wild again in England, right? And their basic premise has been to move the whole lot to Hungary. Was this not just UEFA trying to butter our bread on both sides and then not drop it on the floor?
I think, I mean, Kev just made the comment that the political symbols are supposed to be banned. You know, it made me think, you know, the dates just conveniently missed. But imagine, you know, we've got the World Cup next year starting in November. I mean, would England, for example, have been permitted to have the poppy on their shirts if it would have coincided? I probably think not. I mean, there are, at the end of the day, this probably stemmed from there being, you know, rules around these things, and the Hungarians or whoever it was objected, took that like absolutely literally without really taking into consideration, you know, how the world operates these days, and the fact that, as you know, as Andy says, equality, fairness, it's front and center now for the vast majority of societies around the world, and the reality is, it was. I mean, when I seen it, I was like, wow, that's fantastic, and like it's, you know, it's something I was almost surprised that, you know, isn't actually being worn by more teams. That it was only, you know, it just sort of was there for the first time by the German team, and you know, I actually thought, well, wouldn't it be a better thing if everyone would have worn it, you know, for a round of games? But yeah, it's just it's people using the rules as a basis to then put forward their own, you know, political kind of motivations, and people just end up looking silly. And I'm glad it has been knocked on the head very quickly.
Shane, you played ball at a decent level. We all did, and attitudes and opinions would have been very different back in the day in terms of the dressing rooms and stuff like that. But ultimately, players being able to express something which UEFA are convening as a political symbol, it's a bit much when it's. There's always a fine line between politics and equality, or a struggle, let's say, right? But in this instance, the idea of pride, and given that we're in Pride Month as well, is a global symbol of equality. Like there's no other way to define what this is. This again goes back to encompassing everyone being able to identify themselves for who they are. And look, you know, I have a lot of different opinions on various different things, but when it comes down to this type of stuff, being able to show support surely should never even be brought into question on something that doesn't intend to oppress or suppress other people's views.
No, well, listen, the LGBT community worldwide has been a community that's been suppressed and etc. for decades. Now it's widely accepted that that it's to be supported, or it certainly be. We have Pride Month, etc. like that. You've Andy tweet or said about UEFA tweeting stuff supporting Pride Month. We have the latest campaign was a campaign in the Premier League at one stage, wasn't it? And stuff like that. So I mean, look, it's like how, in fairness, like that. What UEFA did, the investigation UEFA put into the armband, has probably been longer. It's probably been longer than some of their investigations into racial abuse at games, because they don't tend to care really about that. You have UEFA fining Nicholas Benton for Paddy Power boxer shorts after a goal, but then they have an investigation into this. You know, just like tone, like really tone deaf. Would be the phrase I'd use to UEFA's carry on with this.
Look, my opinion is very much on Andy's side. I find it more offensive that basically UEFA are confirming that they're just paying lip service to the idea of being actively an open and just and equal association for all, when quite clearly, if they're going to accept complaints against a Pride armband. Like, we're not talking about a T-shirt with a message or something on it. It was merely just an armband in the colours of the Pride flag, right? As being something to investigate. It's beyond fucking reproach. Like, this is the same organisation who's tweeted out, as you said, the Pride colours and everything else that was there. It's completely ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous that it was even considered. But again, it's UEFA, as I said to you, it's UEFA trying to butter both sides of the bread here, because they're trying to stay in with Orban. So if they need to move the games and need to move a final to a full capacity pitch, or for their final, they manage to get this out of it and still be friends with whoever they are. Remind me a lot of the Catholic Church during World War II, where they wanted to be friends with everyone, and really they're just interested in the money ultimately, and the gold. And as we know, that's what has driven the Catholic religion for centuries upon centuries. Well, before I get deeper into religion, I won't. But going back to my other point that I want to bring into it, because it is, this season to me seems to be particularly, and Kev mentioned it a while as well, particularly with the Olympics coming up in Tokyo, there is a very strong political agenda that's now that's engulfing all the sports. Right, there doesn't seem to be something where there isn't a player or a team or somebody not prepared to take a stand where they believe a stand should be taken. And I'm asking you now, lads, is this from your point of view? Can you remember a more politicized summer of sport than the one that we're witnessing at the moment?
Well, like, I'm going to ask you, like, hasn't politics always been in sport? Like, back to Jesse Owens and Hitler in the Berlin Olympics. Then you've John Carlos and Tommy Smith in Mexico with the Black Panther salute. Then you come up through, like, I'm sure. You would have had the boycotting of the Olympics in Moscow and Los Angeles by the Soviets and the US, and then you go up to bring it on to Kaepernick and etc. There'll be loads of other examples I've missed. So, like, why now is it when, be it the LGBT community are getting support or Black Lives Matter people taking the knee are getting support, that people are saying, well, we don't want politics sport. We don't want politics sport. Sport is literally being built. Some of the best sport moments have been built on political gestures and political things like that. So hasn't, like,
and it's always been
in sport. Yeah.
Those political things have always been about the rights of people as well, haven't they, Davo?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Of course.
And a lot of it comes from the stands over the years. Various social messages that would have came from the COP back in the day, and all over the world, like in South America, it's always been about the rights of people. And people that these football supporters can relate to, and are given those people that wouldn't get a voice otherwise, because we know how the media operates, and we know how they'd lead you to believe that nothing's happening. So quite often it takes a stage like that where a flag can be seen or a player can make a statement. But yeah, like, their free world says, I want equality, but it feels like political talking points are becoming bigger than the actual game. I think that's maybe just how engrossed we are in social media, that people talk a lot about it, but it's definitely always been there. It's for as long as I've watched football, there's always been politics and football have been interlinked. A lot of the time it bugs me because I don't quite understand what that political message is. But when it comes to things like Black Lives Matter or Pride, I think I've learned a lot from those kind of things, and it's challenged how I think about those sort of things. And it's about equality. It's not about politics. Everyone should want equality. It should be something we all strive for. It should be on the agenda at every world stage where millions of people are watching.
Yeah, I think it's touched on something there, Andy. Social media, I mean, it magnifies everything tenfold. You see all of these opinions being voiced, and your timeline fills up with all of these sort of mad opinions on things, and it just seems to gather pace, really. And I think that's a big factor these days. It just, sometimes things just get blown up out of all proportion, and that's just society now. That's the world we live in.
Yeah, and actually, on social media, it gives people a platform to be anti-equality, and that's going to drive people mad. Now, there could be trolls, or there could be people who have those beliefs.
Okay, let me I suppose answer that question then that I posed. I think again this idea. I think 24/7 television, 24/7 news television, 24/7 sports news television has driven a lot more players to become aware of the voice and the power of the voice that they carry. Okay, and I think that's why we're seeing, particularly after going through what we've just been through, where you've had this condensed space where people seem to be paying much more attention to what was going on, much more attention to voices, much more attention to the messages that were being put out there. I think players have bought into the idea that they actually do have a voice and they do make a change. I think particularly in England, when they saw the impact that Rashford could have in terms of his meals for kids, right? All of a sudden the players became and felt more empowered. Look at the abuse that Raheem Sterling has taken over the years for just being a good footballer, right? Look at the abuse that so many players have taken, and look at how even now we're talking about how many gay footballers have felt secure in the knowledge to come out. You know what I mean? So it's like you go back to it. There's not many. There's very few.
There hasn't been many. No. Not high profile anyway.
Do you remember your man who
Hitzelsberger? But he was finished. He was finished. After they played for Villa.
Effectively,
yeah.
So I go back to I think this players and sports people now feel more empowered than they ever had. They feel they have a more important voice. I don't want to say more important voice, that they can get their message out, or they can lend their voice to something that they truly believe in. And when it comes to this global sort of ability of people to come together for the right reasons, I think they want to drive this conversation on this topic, and I think it's fine. I think all this stuff we see, this BLM's a Marxist organization, all this drives me mad. The stuff, the very tenets of what we're talking about here is not about politics, it's about equality. There's politics in everything. There's absolute politics. If you go, most of these footballers will vote for the Conservatives in England because ultimately they're the ones who'll benefit out of their pay packets, right? Because the taxes will be lower than if you bring somebody in who'll tax them more. So but it doesn't mean that they won't support and drive actual things that make a material difference to people that are out there. So look again, people are going to have different opinions. Just say one thing, Shane, on this. To see where it says what do people think of the woman powerlifter? People are going to have different opinions on things. For me, I think this comes away from the politics and comes back to the purity of the sport, right? And there is a biomechanical element to this that is different to the conversation about should a person be able to walk down the street without fear of them being punched in the face or being attacked because of what they choose to be. Okay. You're crossing back into the sport barrier, and you're crossing back into, if you look at something that clearly elevates something physical, that it would be very hard for someone who hasn't gone through a gender reversal or gender change procedure, right? That, like, I'll put it this way: if it was the other way around, if a woman tried to move into the men's powerlifting segment, right, after a gender change, whatever it is, right, they will struggle because their testosterone levels won't be equal to that of a man, even with therapies, etc., around it. Whereas if a man goes the opposite way, their biomechanical structures, and this is what they've shown,
it would probably be breaking a lot of the laws around performance enhancing drugs as well. So it probably would be a bit harder to go that direction.
Yeah, again, but the space levels and stuff. I know, and Dan's right. It's muddy waters. It's one of these. If you want to pull out those really big outliers, but there are going to be conversations that people have to have.
It's very hard to say something that's politically correct about that topic. There's the whole movement of gender identity. It probably is a bit political at the moment because of how it affects the workplace and how it affects, when you bring in certain laws, it might discourage a company from taking on people of different genders because they would leave themselves open for law cases. And I think that's what they're finding a lot in America. So quite a lot of the time, people that are shouting up for a cause aren't the people that the cause affects. And I think about this powerlifting, that's obviously been agreed in the sport of powerlifting. You know what I mean? The people that this really affects, the competitors and the governing bodies, they've agreed to that. So how would our opinion even matter on a topic like that? They've agreed to it. This is what affects them, and it seems to have it's been approved, and it's happy days. So if that's the case, all the best.
But Andy, Dan makes a good point here, and it is something we should be able to openly have conversations around this without feeling so nervous about what you're saying that somebody will either jump on you, will look to cancel you, look to label you as being bigoted or racist or whatever it is, homophobic, because you want to have a conversation about saying, well, is this right? Is this the right thing from a sport? And I want to learn more. If they've proven that this is a fair and stuff, I want to learn that. I want to have a debate. I want to be able to talk about it. And I don't want to feel like that I'm not in the right position, that I'm not able to have this conversation. And all these things are about being able to openly discuss these things, because only through discussion, only being able to openly discuss what's going on with your friends, with family, with people you don't know, can you learn and grow as a person? Stephen was on here a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about some of these topics, and we were saying, and he's learned and grown as a person. And it's like, we need to, if to be grown up and to be adult about these things, you want to learn. I don't want to be afraid to make a mistake in what I say, because I want somebody to tell me, no, that you don't say that. You actually need to think this is the
Graham Souness came out and said that I listen, I could be totally wrong here. I just know Souness, I think he said he had a conversation with someone maybe from the LGBT community, and it was basically about, he said, when I was in the dressing room in the 70s and 80s, he says, look, he just goes, it was absolutely a bigoted place and homophobic and everything like that. And you said what you said then, you couldn't say now. As you alluded to with young people from Drimnagh last week, Phil, things that would be said back in the day that, Jesus, you couldn't say now. And Souness said he really enjoyed the chat because he wanted to learn and he wanted to grow in that topic himself, so he could learn about it as well. You know what I mean? And that's a man in the 60s now. Wanted that was quite a recent thing. I seem to remember seeing.
I think it was about last year, Davo. Last year, he was talking about how he's a big supporter of Pride now, and it's at the back of being educated, because a lot of the time what happens is people jump to shame you. If you don't know something. And that's just going to cause, if you want to have some objective discourse on any topic that you're not, there has to be, you have to be able to behave like a grown up. If you say the wrong thing, you just need to be educated and change your mind. But at this stage, certain topics like Black Lives Matter or Pride, we shouldn't have people that are still objecting to these things of equality. But the only way to make progress is to have these conversations, and that people aren't trying to shame you for not being aware of a certain thing, because we didn't all grow up the same. I mean, growing up in Dublin, we had no people from different countries living here. But it was like everybody was just Irish, white. You know what I mean? And I don't think I knew a Muslim person till a few years ago when I got to know Grizz, and then I learned so much. You know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. The world is more connected now, and that's the only way we make.
Should have grown up in Drimnagh, Andy. There's loads of different people in Drimnagh. It was like a melting pot.
Well, I didn't go too far from Drimnagh, but I was always afraid to go down there.
That's right. That's why.
Because you lived down there.
Right, lads. Look, I think it's been a great chat, and again, I want the people in the chat. Kev is right. I want to see when we're having these conversations, I want to see people's opinions. It's interesting to see how people are coming through. And again, I think we should be able to have these open conversations, because I go back to it. What you learn, if you're wrong about something, learn it because you've been educated by someone. I'm not talking about having somebody ram something down your neck, but to explain to you why actually that mightn't be the right way, or maybe think about it a different way. That's much more important, because when somebody learns and grows and learns something new, they pass that on to their kids, onto their friends, onto their own family, because when the same conversation comes up, they're inevitably going to be in it. They're going to have a better way to to understand and explain to people. Like you say about Grizz being the first Muslim, Jesus, I'm talking Muslim people lived in a small enclave of Dublin in most people's memories, because there's the mosque in Clonskea, and everyone used to anyone who was Muslim sort of live very close with. And I was fortunate enough to know to our family knew, or through marriage, there was a couple of Muslim men in the family in terms of what was there. So it wasn't that unusual for us to have engagement with people in different religions. And then there was people who were Jewish as well that were part of the family. And it was just, but it was that is the exception rather than the rule to most people growing up, right? And even down to having somebody like Pete, who's a close friend, it's the exception rather than the rule when you're growing up. And that has allowed me to, thankfully, and I say this thankfully, to have a relatively open mind in terms of absorbing this thing. And it's great to know you guys, because nearly everyone that's involved with us as a group, everyone involved that has been involved along the way, always have been open-minded. I'm not saying we start off in the right place, but we've learned as we've gone along, and we've grown as we've gone along, and that's what I'm really proud of in terms of what we've done. And again, ultimately, it's the vast majority of the time, it's 4 white blokes or 3 white blokes on the screen talking about football. You know what I mean? But to learn as we go along has been the biggest thing, I think, for us as a group, which is great to see.
Yeah, and I think just to finish up, the great thing about being Liverpool supporters as well, like we've been exposed now for the last few years to a couple of fantastic Muslim players, and we've got a bit of an insight into how they operate, how they live their lives differently to other players that we would have English players, Scottish players, German players, Spanish players, how these lads actually live their lives, and some of the customs that they follow, and it's been great. And I think just back onto the onto gay footballers, there will come a time when that door gets opened and that will become normalized, and hopefully hopefully Liverpool will be a team that will help foster that environment. If there are players who want to come out to the world and say that they are gay, that hopefully ours is one of the most tolerant fan bases out there. You would like to hope in years to come.
I think we absolutely are as a fan base. I think it's Liverpool always encourage equality, and they really do pay a lot of attention to the oppressed, and I think they always have, and they've always been a voice for people with not much of a voice.
Exactly. Right, let's move along to something a little bit less heavy. Ray, who's going to win the Euros?
Well, I mean, my money's on England, but I guess you don't really want to listen to an Englishman back in a own country, do you? I mean, I've just been trying to work out the route for England to get to the final. There's probably more chance of Liverpool getting to the final, actually, when you actually look at it. I mean,
there's a way in. There's a way in. I heard there's a way in through the group stages. So wait for have it in there. Go on.
Well, the way this is shaping up, I mean, I think the most impressive team, the most solid all-round team for me at the moment, as it stands, is Italy. There's something about them. There's something about their togetherness as a team. You've seen it with Chiellini early doors, celebrating, keeping that clean sheet at the start of the tournament. They're getting goals as well. They're spreading the goals around the team. There's contributions from all over the place. The goalkeeper hasn't really been tested that much, but they've got a top goalkeeper there who's capable of pulling off worldies when it's required. Italy are my favourites right now. I just see vulnerabilities with some of the other bigger nations, the likes of France, the likes of even Belgium to a degree. I think they can be got at really at the back. And Courtois can have shaky moments. So, but looking at how the fixtures looking at how the fixtures are going to pan out, I mean, Italy to me have got they've obviously got a handy touch, I think, against Austria in the next round. So yeah, Italy for me. I think I would say this as an Englishman, but I don't see if with the Germans personally. I just can't see them. I just can't see them getting all the way through past some of the bigger teams when they come up against them. I know they did a job on Portugal the other night, but I don't see it myself.
Shane, you've watched every game in this Euro so far. So
no, I haven't.
Yeah, you have. You've been commenting in the group on every single game. I know you have. So it's just don't be pretending now. Come on, tell me who's going to win it.
Oh, I was back to Italy at the start, and I've been happy with what I've seen so far. The one worry before the tournament is as you know, going back through the years, Italy normally need to come in on a scandal before they'll go and win it. They had Calciopoli before they won the World Cup the last time, I think, and then they obviously had the Paolo Rossi stuff in '82. But this tournament they've come in and they've been, I think, they're 27 games unbeaten or something like that, 28 games unbeaten. But Dicko alluded to it, and a lot have been saying, I think Mancini has them all a big squad team, no real superstar at all. It's more the sum of their parts than any one big player, and they've been really solid. Other sides, well, I haven't seen as much as I would have wanted. I haven't seen any of England. Seen very little of the other ones. I'll probably throw a shout out there, but Genie must be in with a shout for player of the tournament so far, is he? For Holland, which will go down a treat on Twitter, I'm sure.
It's going down at the moment. The FSG outlets are literally the pitchforks. They've got banners up at Melwood because they haven't realised they've moved from Melwood at this stage. But it doesn't matter. Like, Robbie Fowler has to take them down every day.
Yeah, he seems to be he's as he normally does for Holland. He certainly knows where the net is. So he's
has he got 2 goals now? Is he joint top for the Golden Boot? Is he?
He's 3 goals, hasn't he?
Yeah, 3 goals.
Yeah, so
three more goals than Harry Kane.
Well, there you go, Joe's mate. Joe has 57 bets all with Harry Kane to be top scorer in them, I think.
Harry Kane has the same number of goals as Robbie Keane in this tournament, so he's going well.
Yeah, listen, I'm all in on Italy. I haven't seen him. France, obviously, they looked. I thought they had a couple of years to go against Germany. Didn't see any of them against Hungary in the game they drew, but they'll obviously be a danger. But yeah, I'm going with Italy anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is Italy. It's lining up for an Italy-Belgium quarter-final, which will be tasty. The Dutch have managed to get in a situation where if they progress, they'll play either Wales or Denmark in the quarter-final. So at the moment, the Dutch have probably got the handier route because they're going to play.
Has that player that's tournament wrapped up?
Yeah, they're going to play a third-place team now in the next round. So that could be any. That could be any sort of cannon fodder. So, if you get to a quarter-final and you're playing Wales or Denmark, it could be panning out nicely for you. Andy,
you've been glued to the tournament. Who are you going for?
Yeah, well, Italy, it's obvious. They're being so enjoyable. The energy, the bravery of them, like the lads are saying, there's no real standout superstar. Look, you look at France and you have Pogba starting to perform and Mbappe, and yeah, fair enough. But like, look at how enjoyable Italy are. Look at how much you want them to win. So yeah, it's going to be hard to stop them. I seen Didi Hamann saying that. Was it Hamann saying that Austria will give them a game? I don't think so. They're going all the way to the final. I think they'll beat Belgium.
The Belgium one is interesting. They've basically wasted one of the most talented squads and generations of talent by having an Everton manager look after them for that length of time. Like if they'd okay, my observation of this, and I actually genuinely watched much of it because unfortunately the game's on when Paw Patrol on, and when there's not much you can see, and also work is on. So when those 2:00 kickoffs were off, I was in work, and at the 5:00 kickoffs, Paw Patrol's on, and by the time the 8:00 kickoffs come around, my other half is just she's so pregnant at the moment, like she's just literally in control of everything, so I'm not going to argue. So I've been watching a lot of programs that aren't to do with football, but what has struck me is the write-offs of managers at this tournament is off the charts. Like, you look around, and when you're trying to pick out a team, I keep coming back to it, outside of Mancini, who are the top level managers in this tournament? like who's won? What manager has won things as a default in terms of their career?
You know, Deschamps has won the World Cup, hasn't he? So, won up with France.
Yep.
The last time, but yeah, look, I take your point. Yeah, look at Southgate. I don't know. I hope it was real. I seen a conversation between Lee Westwood actually answering Henry Winter on Twitter earlier.
That was immense.
Slaughtering Southgate, and it was and when Westwood went into the picking the bones over, you're just going to red going, he's actually spot on. Although Henry Winter would be, he's well in that Gareth Southgate pack because he wants all the access and wants to be mates with them all. So listen, Southgate's no use. Listen, like I said, I haven't watched. I don't know who the Dutch manager is.
Frank de Boer.
Oh, it's de Boer, yeah, who horror show manager really everywhere else he's been. Yeah, you're spot on. It's Luis Enrique, horror show. I know you love him, but
no, I'm going to say that Naeem Yassin says Luis Enrique with Barca. Like, to be fair, right, you could have put Fido the dog in to manage Barcelona with the players they had when Enrique was there, and they still would have won everything. Like, it's not that big of. He isn't. If you talk about what is he doing outside of Barcelona, I'll go back to this thing. What's he doing outside of Barcelona when he didn't have Messi and he didn't have the talent that was around Messi when he was there? He's done nothing. He got chased out of Roma and got sacked from whatever job he was in after that, and now he's back at Spain, and he's leading Spain back to the doldrums. If you look at the way that Spain play, pass, Morata over the bar, pass, mistake, goal against. Like, that's essentially what you're looking at with Spain. So,
or Alisson has a good shout there. Santos from Portugal, he has done well. Like, he's obviously won a Euros. I know they have Ronaldo, and they've really a golden generation at the minute. So, but Jesus, they got their arse handed in the other day by the Germans. So never really rated Love as a manager. I think he's more facilitator when you're managing Germany with the high caliber players you have there. I don't really think a whole lot of tactics go into it. Not by him, maybe more by his backroom staff. But
I think Yogi Low had his time. That tournament in Brazil was his time. He should have walked away after that, because it was going to be hard to replicate what they did in Brazil and to do what they did to Brazil in the final. You're never ever going to see another World Cup final performance as good as that one against the home nation. So,
I mean, Shevchenko, it's been quite comical, hasn't it? I mean, it's actually been nice to see him, because it reminds you of Istanbul. As soon as you see his face, he just takes you straight back to the penalty miss and the miss that, well, the Dudek save, obviously. But yeah, he's looked absolutely, when the camera's been on him, he's kind of looked all kinds of Roy Hodgson clueless. I've talked when the camera's been on him.
They were so bad today, Ray, weren't they?
Yeah, awful,
they were so bad.
When they had the chance to kind of guarantee the progression, awful, really. And I think, are they sitting in third now with an outside chance? Depending on things.
Yeah,
but
I'm not too sure. They mentioned, I think he said, they mentioned on commentary through their research or whatever, I think this was going to be his last hurrah, because he's looking at club management in Italy. So he's obviously a shoe-in maybe to get he'll get a job anyway, considering 18 of the 20 teams is summer change manager in Serie A. So are they likely to change manager? Only Milan and Atalanta are keeping them, or have kept them. So yeah, look, he'll get a job.
So essentially, we're saying that Mancini is potentially the cream of the crop when it comes to the managers, and he has the best side. So that means Italy get knocked out in the semi-finals.
Yeah.
And then Steve Clark's probably number 2.
Isn't it mad how everyone's coming around to how much of a joker Southgate is? And we were all saying the way the whole thing with Trent, because we knew he was trying to dodge playing expansive football and positive football, and now he's being shown. He's leaving all the flair players out. He's leaving everyone out. Like,
I remember Jamie was trying to tell us that they're a great, that he was doing a great job with England, and even Jamie now has thrown the old bathwater out. The kids and everything have gone out with the bathwater when it comes to Southgate. It's just like he just wants to play happy football again, and it's never going to happen. I honestly think, Ray, you as an England fan, right? I have to ask you a question now, as a massive England fan, which I don't understand because you're Scouse, right? Huge. I'm surprised. Did you take down your St. George's cross there in the back of your shed? Do you have a St. George's cross? That's why you have.
I'll go back up to the semi-final.
Oh man, you have a big George's cross that's going across the back there, right? Formby Reds across the back of your Scandinavian shed for watching the match there on a big screen. He's there splaring out. It's coming home. Can you imagine that, Andy? Where Ray lives, it's all the English songs and everything going on, wrecking the shop. Stella Artois in the gaff sitting there on the sofa, giving it socks. Well, I can see you, right? But
in fairness, Ray is the least English person I know. Secretly supports England.
Yeah, to be fair. But can you understand? Is there not a logic that says that England undersell themselves massively when it comes to recruiting a manager and giving somebody with a vision for attacking football to take over, because they just get pieballed by the media at some stage. Like, you can just see the knives have sharpened so much for Southgate at the moment. They're just waiting for him to get knocked out. You can see that this is sharpening him. He's going to be hammered at this stage. Is it not sort of, even though you are a closet England fan, does it not get irritating that you just can't get that magic mix of a proper manager like a Bobby Robson? Like, you haven't had one since Bobby Robson was in charge. Maybe Venables in '96, and then he was chased out because he did a dodgy deal with Amstrad or something like that. Do you remember? So,
I mean, look, the FA are they're just incapable, aren't they? We know they're incapable on so many levels, and this is just another facet, really, of this. I mean, let's not forget, it wasn't that long ago that, you know, they put Sam Allardyce in charge of the national team. I mean, that kind of says it all, really. And I mean, Southgate, when he first came in, was a bit of a breath of fresh air. The fact that he was kind of bringing players through that had done well, you know, under 21 level. And, you know, I do like the fact that everyone's kind of almost got an equal chance of making it. You know, we were kind of stuck in this kind of constant cycle of trying to, you know, fit sort of square pegs in round holes, because you were trying to go with your players from the big clubs. And he seemed to move away from that, and he did seem to be onto something for a little while. But yeah, it's gone very negative now, and it's just gone in the whole other direction in terms of all that goodwill, and there does seem to be an inevitability of this all having a really bad ending, whether it be in this tournament or whether it be in Qatar, where they probably, you know, you probably find a scenario where they won't even get out the group. You know, like they've literally got through the group now tonight by default. You know, they've got 4 points on the board against two really kind of, you know, substandard teams, and because of the teams can't even get, you know, 4 points on the board coming third, they've defaulted into the next round. But don't be surprised. Like, no one should be surprised by England going out in the next round, irrelevant of who they play.
I think though, Phil, it's still remains to this day the most poison chalice football job on planet Earth, and because of the media, we know they play darts and pool with the media now, so they try and all be mates and everything else like that, rather than going back to the Graham Taylor torn up in the front of the paper days and stuff like that. But I mean, it's like every journalist, as we know Liverpool journalists, there's other journalists attached to different clubs around, they all have their own camp. So if like Grealish isn't playing, I would be starting Grealish, but then does Foden drop out? Then someone in the media is going to hammer him if Foden isn't in the team, and they don't win, etc., etc. So listen, it's still to this day just remains the media are self-obsessed. They feel that they should get some credit maybe somehow if England end up winning it because they've championed the team and blah blah blah. But it still remains to this day as poison a chalice as it was for Graham Taylor, I think, back in the day.
I have a great idea, but I'm keeping it till next week because it's my topic for next week when I can't think of anything that's related to what's going on at this stage. So I'll keep it next week, but we can get into that a bit more next week. But Andy, from your point of view, Italy managers are crap. In terms of dark horses, this is the one I want to finish off in terms of who we think is going to win the Euros. Because so many teams go through out of this, it sort of ruins the idea of a dark horse. You know, there's always been like, if two teams are going through, you always get this random team that either tops the group or comes second.
You have a short route to get to the final and win. Look, I think if there's any team that has an extra bit now, it's Denmark, and I'm sure we'd all absolutely love to see them go all the way if that was possible. It'd be such an amazing story, you know, the romance of football. I think everyone will be behind that. So, like, if there's a dark horse to win it, there you go. I'd love to see it happen.
Yeah.
Like Kev is saying Holland, Mr. Slackalot are saying Holland. They aren't exactly dark horses. Like, dark horses generally are teams that are be like Scotland or a Wales or I don't know.
England. But in fairness to the Dutch, I don't think anyone would have picked them coming in. Now Van Dijk, now the Ligt, the Bar has been an absolute horror show wherever he's managed before. Like over the years, the Dutch would always have great centre forwards, Kluivert, Van Nistelrooy, Bergkamps, etc. There's none of that. So they're coming in kind of under the radar rather than a dark horse field. But like, Jesus, Genie's carrying them. So I don't know if they've qualified, but would Switzerland not sort of fit into the dark horse, because Shaq is on fire, potentially going from a 15 million sale to a 30 million sale with this form that's going on. Is that the type of team that could? What round is the next? How many teams get into the next round? 16.
16.
I think they have qualified now, Phil, as a result of what's happened today. I think they will be one of the third place teams. I guess it all depends which sides of the draw that they land on now. I think any dark horse to come, because I was thinking, you know, if the Czech Republic went through in England's group as, say, the runners-up, and they landed a handy tie with the runners-up in Spain's group, which is how that pans out, then maybe the Czech Republic. But so I think it's going to be hard for a team to then progress beyond the quarterfinals on that side of the draw, because that's stacked with the likes of Germany, Spain, France. It is.
I think Israel over egging Germany. I know they did really well against Portugal, but the first game they were absolutely dog shite. Like, do you know what I mean? They really were. And to be fair, anytime I've watched the game, the standard of football isn't great. So, like, I can't figure out how none of these teams don't have a chance in the next round, with the exception of Italy, who looked seriously. But then I think, again, an awful lot of these teams peak too early. Like, if you're flying through the group stages, how many teams fly through the group stages and then go on to win the tournament? It's not that often. It's normally a team that sort of comes in second game, third game look better, and then you get into the quarterfinals.
Gets a late winner somewhere along the lines.
Yeah.
In fairness, though, that Germany-France game was worth it alone just to watch Mats Hummels try to chase Mbappe after losing a 5 yard head start.
And get there.
Yeah, and in fairness to him, he did. In fairness,
yeah.
I don't think you should rule out Wales making a bit of a run again. I mean, Wales are playing Denmark. Say about Denmark maybe being a dark horse, but you know, Wales then coming up potentially against the Dutch. I mean, who knows? I mean, they've got a sprinkling of world-class players there, haven't they, who can turn it on the day.
The Portuguese team you would have fancied to do damage, and then because of that Germany result, you're now going, nah. But, like, yeah, it's gas, because after the Germany's opening game, you would have been saying nah to Germany, but now we're saying because Germany comprehensively beat Portugal, it's like you're there going, Germany look good again. So if Portugal go out and bash Spain, does that not put them into... they're back to being good again?
That group, Ray is the Mats man, put all the orders, but that group looks a bit mad now, Ray, doesn't it? After Germany losing to France drama, Hungary, Germany hammering Portugal. Like, that's a bit of a mad group, Barry.
I think anyone who's on 4 points now, pretty much, even with one game to go, is pretty much guaranteed to go through. Unless they miraculously finish bottom of the group on 4 points. So France, with the 4 points, will know that they're basically through. Who's got to play? Who are the two big guns playing one another in the last game? It's France against Portugal. Yeah. So Portugal will know that a point takes them through as well against France. So you know they're probably going to play a fairly cagey, I would imagine, against France. And France, you know, they're probably not going to go to gung ho. They're going to probably look to save themselves for later rounds. This to me though is the test for France, because Portugal look like they have the players that will exploit the weaknesses in the French team.
Like in the main, they have Jota and they have Ronaldo, and all they have to do is strike a shot from left to right against lorries, and they'll score 3 or 4 goals in a game.
I knew you were going there. I knew you were going there. but I totally agree. He's horrendous.
Just on that shot, Shane, you just go down on the left-hand side and shoot it across him, and it'll just go in the net all the time. Look at Origi did it, and we did it like loads of times to him all the time. And you see him playing international football, and it's the same goal over and over and over again. How Germany didn't do, I don't even know who played each other, but like how Germany didn't do that to them repeatedly is beyond me, because that's exactly what I would have done for them.
I actually thought Germany were okay in the second half of that game, Phil, but they never tested them at all.
No.
Someone texted me going, I thought Germany were all right. So, yeah, but they never tested them, and if they had have, they probably would have got something. Yeah,
I don't disagree. Portugal is shot at the back, and Bruno Fernandes is basically cat's piss. Let's be honest about it. Like he's an icing type player. He's not a cake. He's just icing, right? So it's like if you have a nice cake and you stick icing on top of it, the icing is nice. If somebody comes along and gives you a whole lot of icing, it just looks like sick on a plate, and that's what Fernandes is. He's sick on a plate. So like that's basically what he is. Kick. Anyway, moving on.
Jota's, on a Liverpool kind of topic, I think Jota's looked good. He's looked decent. Yeah. He looked sharp. Combining well with Ronaldo for a couple of goals there the other night. I mean, Portugal, they were a whisker away of taking that, to the wire. Like they hit the post 4-3, and I think they could easily have bombarded and scored another one, and it could have been 4-4. It was a mad game, absolutely mad game. But they were woeful at the back. Diaz looked shaky. They just, Pepe, I don't know, he's how old is he now? 44, something like that. I mean, he's showing his age, isn't he?
He is, and he still likes to kick people up the hole, which I have a massive lot of respect for, right? And talking about kicking players up the hole, Shane, your topic, referees. But is that Ben 10?
No.
Who is it?
It's just some fireman sham.
It looks like Ben 10. Shane,
just sitting here at the table.
Just playing with him there. Are you doing a little story and everything now? Is that what you're looking at?
I'm just waiting for you to change the subject. I'm getting bored of the Euros totally.
Sorry, man.
Geez, Andy, I won't go with my topic then at all.
What was your topic? VAR now?
Yeah, VAR and referees at the Euros. Yeah, look, I think now. Listen, by the way, my topic got ruined tonight because the offside that was given against Lukaku in that Belgium game was disgrace, and the ref bottled the second yellow big time in that Denmark game against Russia. But in general, and a lot of people have been talking about it, be it on social media or our WhatsApp groups, that the refereeing and VAR has been a lot more streamlined. It's been a lot more quicker. The Lions haven't really been out. They've been quick decisions. It's the system in itself has worked a hell of a lot better. And yeah, look, I thought even Anthony Taylor's there. I think, I'm not sure is he the only English referee there, but he was obviously, I thought he was excellent. Obviously, what he had to deal with in the Denmark game. But I just think in general, the officials have been a lot better than we watch every week. Yeah. And VAR has been a lot more streamlined.
Who'd have thunk it, Davo? Who'd have thunk it?
Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? But
I mean, we've only been going on about it for 2 seasons.
But here's my little tangent just to this as well, that my little take on it. Is the VAR when it's not Liverpool? So when we're watching a game, Liverpool score, VAR check. Right? You start shitting yourself. If I'm watching a game, the Euros, unless it's Italy in the final and I might win a big wedge of money, Joe Walsh style, and it's a VAR, and it's a VAR check comes up and you're watching one of the games in the Euros, like, you don't really get, like, it's not affecting you the way, like, so my thinking on this is, like, VAR obviously affects you way more when it's Liverpool, in my opinion, than it does your watching experience of the game. Is much more impeded when it's a Liverpool game that the VAR check comes up on rather than the Euros. So that's another. I know people are saying football is last season was too many VAR goals, or some VAR goals are bad and everything like that. But when they go against us, they go against Liverpool, of course you're gonna go fucking spare. When you're watching these European games, VAR check does it really matter what way it goes? But in general, look, I think the VAR has been a lot more streamlined, a lot quicker, and hasn't affected the game anyway near it does in the Premier League. As Andy said, who would have thunk it?
Yeah. Right. On that though, like we talked about this during the season, we were talking about Champions League, and it seemed like the referees were better and VAR was better in the Champions League. Is this just not the sort of leading on from what Shane? Is this not just the fact that if you don't spend 40 minutes trying to make a decision and have it on camera so the world can see it on television, right? And it's just managed efficiently. Like, you even see the ones where the referees are told to go over to the camera and have a look at them themselves, and you can see them going over to have a look at themselves. You can see where they're making a decision. Is that just not the logically? It's a better way of running it, because we don't, as viewers, you don't need to see everything. You don't need to see how they're making the decision, who they're talking to, all the angles and all that type of stuff. And it allows them to do it quicker. The one thing I will say, they look a lot quicker at making those decisions. And it goes back to how it's been implemented. So is there a clear and obvious error in the decision that was made? If not, the decision stands, or you hand it over to the ref to say, look, I think it's worth you having a look at that one.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things here. So first of all, in the comments, and Davo mentioned there's some comments in, it's happening at a much quicker pace. There's seems to be a lot less deliberation. And I think some of that probably comes down to the fact that I think it is going down the path of what it was intended to, which is the clear and obvious error. And we spoke about it on several occasions throughout the season, the Premier League season. I think what we're seeing is removing of the dynamic that we seem to have got in England, where kind of people are almost second guessing one another, and there's this dynamic of referee A working with referee B. They know each other. There's this clique of referees. There's the dynamic of people one referee not wanting to undermine another referee, and I think there's a lot more going on that is crept into it over the course of the Premier League season, which just isn't there at this level. Like, referee A isn't asked about overruling referee B here, or telling them to go and look if there's been a clear and obvious error in his opinion. And then, referee A, when he goes over to the screen, doesn't seem afraid about admitting that he didn't see something, or that he made a mistake on his original judgment. Like this is how it was all supposed to work in the first place. And definitely in England, we got completely away from that. Certainly by the sort of second half of the season, there was other stuff going on in referees' minds and heads, and it all become a big load of people kind of protecting their own backs by the end of it, and that clearly isn't happening here for me.
Andy, and to add?
Yeah, no, that's 100%. I think we've said it here before. The association of refs in England, they're a boys' club. They all know each other. You can't have governance like that when they're all sort of looking after each other. With the Euros, you've referees coming from all over the place. They don't know each other. As Laura Duffy says, there's a dedicated VAR team, so there's no there's no, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's just decisions are made objectively. It's how refereeing is supposed to happen. There's so much subjectivity in refereeing in England. It's incredible. And we're so suspicious of the Premier League referees now, and rightly so. So we want to see more transparency. We want to see more lines. We want to see more talk. We want to hear what they're saying, because we're so suspicious of them. Whereas, like, when it's the Champions League or when it's in the Euros, it's fine to see less, because you kind of just trust that they're going to make the right decision. And it seems so far that they're making all the right decisions and they're refereeing games like they're supposed to do. And the Premier League needs to seriously look at this, because it's glaringly obvious to the world now, all the people who watch English football, that those referees in England need to go. And there needs to be a massive reform, because they're absolutely fucking the game up in England. Because they just don't want to referee the game objectively. They want side chat. They want fucking all the talk. The media puts the pressure on. It's just a shambles. You know what I mean?
They dug a little bit of a hole last season, and they just kept digging and digging and digging. Tried to make little minor adjustments around rules. That didn't work. It just ended up spiraling out of all control, and it's hard to imagine them even owning up to that and trying to take it the way that the European refs are approaching this. I completely expect the same shit show next season. I really do.
Absolutely. It's not going to change. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect it to be any different. It's going to be exactly the same. We're going to be talking about refs and VAR every single fucking week.
I won't. We're going to put a ban on. We'll allow the topic to be introduced 3 times next season. So if you want to play the VAR or the officials card, know that there'll be only 3 cards to be used during the course of the season. I'm going to buy big cards that people can hold up to play it, right? Okay, look, I've nothing to add. So I haven't seen enough games to comment, but I do know that there seems to be a general theme that people aren't going on about refs or bad decisions or VAR. So if that's not happening, it means it must be working, and that's all that matters. Learn what they're doing right and implement it in the best leagues in the world, and job done. I think Barry Devaney is right there. I have heard Peter Walton a couple of times, and fuck me, I don't think he's gotten a decision right in terms of what's going on. The fella clearly hasn't a breeze what's going on with refereeing, and if he's involved in any type of refereeing in England, no wonder it's a shit show. Right, last topic, lads. The World Games.
World Games.
Never happened.
Football is nearly over, and we're coming up to the summertime. So, what sports are going to keep you occupied when finally we can turn the television off to football matches and just take a breather and let our combined football juices subside so that we're eager for the new season to start again? And to give it one of a few things, we have the Olympics in Tokyo, the COVID Olympics, where the athletes not only are going to be trying to do their events, but they're also going to try not pick up any diseases. Then we've got the Tour de France is kicking off on the 26th of this month as well. So we get that way we get to see how well the vaccines are working in real life. Next year's vaccines at work for this year. And then we've got I don't know, Wimbledon, is that meant to be on? Branded cheese, Pornhub, is that a sport? No, that's not a sport. That's a pastime. Boxing, golf. Well, we've got Andy here. Andy, this will get Andy in enjoying at the moment. But Andy, the old golf was on last night. All the lads blew up from about the 9th hole onwards. So is golf going to be your go-to sport?
Oh, absolutely. I love watching the golf. I've loved watching the golf throughout when there was no fans. It didn't take much away from the sport, but it was brilliant again last night. It was brilliant to seeing John Rahm winning his first major. So golf is I nearly prefer it to football a lot of the time. It's just, you can spend a weekend dipping in and out of it, and there's absolutely nothing like watching a competitive finish on a Sunday night now like that. It wasn't too difficult for Ram at the end. Like McIlroy blew up as usual. But no, golf all the way, all day long.
I was delighted to see Bryson the Champagne being absolutely gick in the last 9 holes. It was fantastic. Like him.
Yeah. There's something very satisfying with seeing him putting a drive in OL play. It's fucking great.
Over and over again. It was fantastic.
And there's this bloody myth about him, like about him driving the ball a mile. He just drives the balls down stupid angles into crowds, doesn't shout far. He's an absolute tosser. And McIlroy is still out driving him without being a big fat balloon head.
Is there golf at the Olympics, Andy, this year? The lads allowed to play golf. Remember they were able to play at the last Olympics. So the Olympics, lads, the Olympics is the closest thing we get to World Games, but without the fun. And obviously, there's I don't get the logic in having the Olympics this year. I know obviously Japan really want to host it, and then they don't really want to host it at the same time. But it's like every 4 years you get to see loads of sports that you don't ever see again for another 4 years. So it's like, does it matter? You know what I mean? Like, I just thought, would it not have made more sense to find one venue that could host the Winter and the Summer Olympics just this time around because of COVID, right? And wrap them all into one big year, the Olympics, where they run like from, say, September right the way through to December. And it just goes on for weeks upon weeks upon weeks upon weeks. And we'd have the crack. Like, I don't even know. Does anyone know anyone that's involved in the Olympics? Like, I think
are there got to be fans in Tokyo filling the stadium now?
10,000 they announced today.
Is it 10,000 that's allowed in the stadium?
Yeah.
I don't know why Mohammed is attacking me there. Why is he doing that?
That's far more subs than the forum has after a year. So I don't know what you're giving out about.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even subscribe to this show. We should definitely subscribe to the Daytrippers because it's definitely worth watching. Just don't turn into this in a Monday. It's brilliant.
No.
But the Olympics, I think we should watch the canoeing because we're going to put that big, huge white water centre into the middle of Dublin. That's going to be an important sport for us in the future. The 100 metres on ice. Avo,
this is what we're talking about. This is World Games shit. This is what it's at.
This is the World Games is their plan to get rid of the Olympics and just have the World Games and it has to be the 100 metres on ice. It has to be competed by transgender weightlifters. That's it. That's where the World Games is at. That is the standard we are striving for. Amazing. Matt Sweeney saying the skateboarding in the Olympics. How do you have skateboarding? Is that not just a load of like old fellas trying to pretend to be teenagers with baggy jeans doing like tricks on the edge of like? Did he have races? What did they do with skateboarding? Somebody like the only time I've ever seen skateboarding is like one of these things that goes around and then they go.
Yeah, they do loads of tricks and then they get scored and that. Bit like Tony Hawk or something like that. I think is it? Maybe the game Tony Hawk.
What's McGregor doing in July? Is he fighting a YouTuber or something like that?
He's fighting a man that beat him the last time, I think.
Which one?
Your man from the Marble Arch. I think you're whiskey and stick it up your arse. Right. I don't know. I think I'll end up watching I love the Tour de France. The Tour de France for me has always been something I love to watch. It's summertime. You know, when there's no football on, there's generally no sports on, and the Tour de France comes on, you can just sit there. And if you watch a live day of the Tour de France, they're just cycling for hours. Nothing's really happening until the last 10 seconds when they get up to the end, and they all just go hay for leather at the end of it. Or if there's big hills, then see which lads have had this proper caterpillar juice to get up to the top of those hills quicker than everybody else.
I've had the Jiffy bag.
Yeah. Sam Bennett's out of the Tour de France. That is right. That's a shame from an Irish point of view. It would have been great to see. Daytrippers versus Team Coppish in the octagon. I don't know if there are some big lads in the Trippers. They might look it on screen, but there are some big lads in the Trippers, and not just big as in they had a really good lockdown. Big as in they didn't have a really good lockdown. They spent their time getting bigger in lockdown. So I was like, I don't know if that would be safe. So I think I definitely go with the War Games. I think if we can get the War Games on. Actually, I was watching sort of off-roading 4x4 stuff from America. That was great. Like you can watch that for just wake up in the morning, stick it on, and it's just lads from the south who've made these massive jeeps and they just drive up and down mountains. It's fantastic. That's a great sport to watch as well.
I think it is great with the Olympics being on. You get to see other sports that you don't normally see, and Ireland obviously tend to do well in amateur boxing and stuff like that. But I love the athletics. The Olympics when the athletics is on, and all the stadiums I've been on before, but it's great. It really is. Great television. The athletics at the Olympics. I'd be betting into that for the summer. Golf like Andy as well. Bet into it.
Will you be betting to the gymnastics now, Shane?
I'd watch it now. Yeah, I'd watch it.
Can't beat a bit of gymnastics. I think the lads on the rings are just phenomenal. They're just phenomenal. The powers in their shoulders and the muscles that they have. It's amazing to watch those fellas.
That core strength
is just off the charts.
Yeah,
my view is completely different. Like from from the 12th of July onwards, after the tournament's finished, for me, it's a month's worth of getting enough credit in the bank so that I can go full pelt with the start of the new Premier League season and NFL seasons, Phil, because that gets intense from September onwards.
Yeah.
It gets pretty intense, owning the telly.
Pre-season NFL though, Ray, is such a short period. Like, there's no messing around. You don't get these 2-month build-ups. The lads get back in at the start of August, and they're straight into the matches by the start of September. All the OTAs are done at this stage, so it's waiting for training camp and see who turns up. So that gets me excited. But it's this dead period that we're talking about at the moment, which is around now to about the start of August.
You get to see whether the Dubs come in 7 in a row. You know what I mean? That's absolutely brilliant. I know that's not really up your alley, Phil. Although the Lions is on, Phil, this summer. You're a partial bit of rugby, aren't you?
Fan, Phil.
Yeah, but anything with British in the title of it means I'm not going to go, because I hate the Brits, and I'm just like, because everyone was giving out to me last week about being an English basher. Yeah, what's your point?
Well, listen, that whole concept does be blown way out of proportion anyway. If fucking 4 countries or 5 countries can't go down and beat one, you may fucking pack it in all together.
Well, I don't know why don't they let the French and Italians in?
I don't know.
Just call it Europe. It started. They'd find another excuse as to why they lose when they lose to the All Blacks or whatever. As to, listen, come here. England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales can't get a team of players to go down and beat one team. I think it's interesting that Ray only turns on after the 12th of July. Ray, have you a bowler hat and a sash in the back of that thing?
That's just the way it works out. That's just the way it is this year.
Are you trying to announce your nomination as the new DUP leader?
They're coming back down to Dublin for a march again this year.
I believe so, yeah.
And they're gonna hopefully to do, and they put some manners and all the scrouts going around Dublin punching each other's heads in at the moment.
I'd look forward to a march down in Dublin. It'd be a bit of crack.
They come down and bait them with their tin whistles.
We haven't had a parade.
They don't have tin whistles, do they? They have flutes or
drums. Drums
and flutes.
Flutes.
Flutes and drums.
If they just came down with their flutes and drums and bashed all the young fellas on South Ann Street,
we'd be happy.
It'd be great crack.
Yeah,
come on down. You're welcome this year.
So Ray Dicko is up as the new DUP leader, and everything is grand after the 12th of July. Fair play, Ray. Well done. It's a big step up for you. Look forward to seeing you on the television in Stormont.
The one thing about the rugby though is, for a change, because obviously usually they be in New Zealand or Australia or whatever. At least this tour being in South Africa, it's on at a reasonable time for people to actually watch it and have an afternoon and whatnot if they want to do something. It's good. I might actually, for the first time in a long time, give it a whirl. I watched it when I was living in Australia because the time it was on the proper time. So yeah, I was just looking here, 5 o'clock kickoffs. They're good. 5 o'clock.
I just wish that, like, a bit like the Ryder Cup became Europe against America. Sure, if you just have the North, it'd be better off just making it the Northern Hemisphere against one of the teams down the Southern Hemisphere. And sure, if they move South Africa into the Six Nations to make it the Seven Nations, which I think is happening, what's the point in them going touring against a team that the lads are going to be playing against anyway with their own nation? Like, it just seems a bit mad. Just I could never buy into the British and Irish Lions thing, because it was just.
Oh, I just can't understand the kind of the clamour for that if they win and stuff like that. It's just like it's like Ireland beating the All Blacks in a friendly. Jesus Christ, give it a rest, like. You know what I mean? He's beat them in a friendly. If Ireland rugby teams want to start impressing people, they'd want to win a knockout game in a World Cup instead of beating teams in friendlies and then releasing DVDs. They're like Everton, Dicko. That's what they're like.
You're wrong, like Everton. You just don't understand the cultural significance of what they never beat the All Blacks.
Don't start that rubbish. Don't start that. Win a knockout game.
What's the story with everyone with hay fever at the moment, Phil?
It's COVID hay fever. Anyone that got the Pfizer vaccine has gotten an extra bad dose of hay fever this summer.
No, seriously, there's a stupid amount of people with hay fever, like kids and everything. Like, it's mad. What's going on? No,
they've just got the Delta variant. I've got the COVID vaccine variant of hay fever, which is a killer. It's my eyes are basically streaming all the time, and they haven't told me that, but at least I'm safe. I'm not going to die. But yeah, the hay fever, the pollen count seems to be high. But Andy, I actually have a theory about this because I've seen.
What's going on?
Well, because we've been locked down, there's been less air pollution. No, less air pollution from the planes and the chemtrails that have been released into the atmosphere, right? And that we've been locked down, and there's less traveling going on. There seems to be a better bloom from the flowers this summer. There seems to be a lot more bees around, which is great to see. And I think because of that, there's a lot more pollen knocking about, and that's why we're all suffering with hay fever a lot worse. And also, we're getting a decent June, which we normally only get one decent week in June. We're getting a whole month that's decent, so we're just not used to having so much pollen floating around.
And I heard 2 stories of bees traveling in packs lately. I don't know whether you ever seen. I never seen a swarm of bees going around, but in the last two days, I've been told 2 separate stories of people witnessing massive amount of bees heading somewhere.
South Ann Street.
Frightening.
South Ann Street. Everyone's going to South Ann Street at the moment. Yeah. Going into start trouble. The bees they want to join into.
What do fucking bees be like? What's the story with that? Like years ago, bees just used to go around on their own, like getting pollen off flowers and that. Now they're going around in gangs. Like
you should watch the Bee movie, man. They've always been going around in gangs. There's a whole group of uniforms and everything like Top Gun. It's deadly. It is. They're best, but they're
Phil,
best
you normally know about this stuff. What the fuck is the story? The extra hay fever and bees going around in gangs.
Yeah, I'm not a bit. This is one area I haven't gone down the rabbit hole yet in. But we can ask if we can ask Trev if he ever gets off of Spotify. Tweeting them to see if they can sort out why his episodes appear up backwards on Spotify. So we'll ask him. He knows all the stuff because he's a gardener, Andy. So here you go. But I don't know. Maybe somebody in the chat knows why are the bees knocking around in gangs this year. Maybe
I think Laura Duffy's hit the nail on the head. The bee gangs are heading out to
take
maybe they're going after the bin men. That would be sweet. Sweet as honey. It's scary. The world is changing. Like
this is a scary world, Andy.
Yeah,
like it doesn't.
Well, look, we started off tonight as the weather show, and now we're finishing with Planet Earth. It's fucking what a pod! What a pod!
What a group!
We prepared to be educated on this pod.
Yeah,
it is.
But tell me about the time.
Go on.
Last year, I got attacked by wasps. Davo, do you know this story?
Oh, is this what happened to you when you were playing golf?
Yeah, it was in a match, and I went in to look for somebody else's ball into the trees down the right of the tent.
Because you were straight down the middle.
Oh,
of course,
as always. And, being a good sound opposition playing partner that I am, I went in to look for the man's ball, and I stood in a wasp fucking nest. And
you're lucky.
Yeah. Well, I didn't feel so lucky. When I stood in it, I thought I was at the standing like in a stinger because it was an immediate burning. So I just lifted my leg, I was stood in a stinger, and then the other fucking leg started. So I just legged it out of the trees onto the fairway, and there was loads of wasps on my legs, loads of them, like hundreds of them, and they were going up into my shorts and all. And I took out my t-shirt, stripped off my shorts on the fairway, and just ran up the fairway in my boxer shorts. And the lads were just wetting themselves laughing. And I had a hat on, so I was like, they were looking for a lake to jump into. And eventually they just fucked off. But it was absolutely fucking scary. Like that night when I was at home, hopping into the shower, I was roasting, cold shower, and it was like wasp stings all over my arse and everything. It was horrible. Madness.
Any pictures?
No, I didn't take any.
That would have been a great picture to plug the quads and his arse covered in wasp things. I hate wasps. Hate them. I like bees. Bees are happy little fellas.
Wasps are fucking scumbags. They're scumbags. And up in the club, it's not as bad at the moment, Davo. Maybe it was even before you joined, but we had a real big problem with horseflies. They're the biggest scumbags of all. They're of all them, they are horrible horrible things. Horseflies. Have you ever seen them?
They're like daddy long leg jokes.
No, they're just big flies. They're just big, nasty looking flies. Like you can see their teeth and all.
Yeah,
and they don't. You know when you do that with a fly, it just heads off. These things that encourages them.
Yeah,
encourages them.
Oh, it does. They're like, oh, you swat at me, I'll show you. And they're coming in. And they always get you. Like no matter what, you'll have a big boiler on your neck.
Oh,
you know. Horrible, and you're standing over a drive, and the next thing one of the bastards it's too late.
Watching you, he's had to be watching you. Like he's waiting for your backswing, and then he come in and nail you.
Interesting, Andy. You did ask about the bee. I know more about wasps than I know about bees now. To be fair, right? Because that's why. So August, the end of August, start of September. Well, towards the start of August, start of September, that's when you have your issue with wasps, because what happens is they become more active and they're getting towards the end of their life cycle. But the queen wasp in the nest kicks them all out, right? So they basically go in and they lay all their eggs and all their larvae, and they're all in the nest, right? And then she evicts every other single wasp that's in the nest, right? Now, don't ask me how she does it unless she has like massive guns or something to kick them all out. But they all. So then you have all these angry little wasps, because remember, there's only one queen, only one female, and the rest are all male. So you have all these angry little fuckers sent out, right? And they basically they're flying off to die. That's essentially what's going on. So that's why, as the month goes on, they become more aggressive, in terms of what it is, because it's just like, you know, the way when you talk to an old man and he's pissed off all the time, right? So that's what the wasps are like. They're going out and they're pissed off. And that's why they then start attacking anything that moves. And like there's the myth, you know, this myth about bees, when they sting you, they go off to die then because their stinger gets pulled out of their bum, and that's what's left in your arm. Wasps have repeat stingers. They've just got like they've basically an arrow that just keeps nipping wherever they want. They're little bastards. I hate wasps.
Not like a bee just sting. That's it. They're out of there. They die.
They leave their stinger in there.
These are just so like they're bang on compared to wasps. It's so weird. Like
you go out for it. So if you want to kill a load of wasps, now not that I'd encourage cruelty to animals or anything like that, but wasps aren't animals; they're little bollockses, right? So like, but interestingly, wasps do have a function. They kill, flies.
Do they?
They eat flies. So, because there was one thing about them, wasps have a function in nature's chain. They kill mites and flies and stuff like that. Midges. The midges that bite you.
Yeah.
They eat them. Now, the one we have to watch out for though is the Korean hornet. That's is it the African killer hornet or the Asian killer hornet that they're scared is going to get into Europe, because supposedly if they sting you, it's like hot lava going into your blood. That like this thing is lethal, and they're about that size, right? And they look a bit like a giant wasp, except with one stripe on their back end, right? But what they
them at the tent, Andy.
No, I wouldn't even be going in looking for my own ball if I knew they were lurking in there.
But come here to me. If you see one of them, you have to report them to the ISPCA, because they have to go in and find the nest and kill them all. Because if they get in, they're actually cannibals. Not cannibals, sorry. They're carnivorous. So they hunt wasps and bees, and they get in and they behead them and suck out their insides. And that's what they do. So now there you go.
Oh, nature's mad, isn't it? Do you ever see the the murder at night time? The crows.
No.
So when all the crows land and they take out the weakest member of the crow pack. Do you know about this?
No.
That's what they do every night. Another time I was playing in the course at night time. It was the last to leave. I was just up practicing.
Just look at the size of those bastards.
Wow.
That's an Asian giant hornet. If you see one of them, one, don't get stung by them, and two, report it to your local ISPCA or RSPCA, because they are literally the most dangerous thing around. Shane Downs asks, has there been a sighting in Europe, Phil? There was a sighting in Swords last September, and a set of alarm bells ringing, and they couldn't find the source of it, but there was a genuine sighting. They found they did find one as well, the body of an Asian giant hornet. So there you go.
Anyway, all the crows. Right. I was coming down the 9th, Davo, and on the right hand side in the trees, all the crows was like thousands of them. big, massive crowds, like, and I was thinking to myself, like, if they're here for me, I'm fucked, because like there's no one here that they'll have me for breakfast. But they all came down onto the fairway, thousands of them, and I just like legged it down onto the 7th, and just got into my car there and fucked off. But when I was looking back, they all just fucked off and just left one crowd there in the middle. They were all down to just bash one crowd, the weakest crowd. And that's what they do, apparently, all the time.
The boardman at Beach Park, Andy.
Yeah.
Right, so I hope you all have learned stuff in the chats tonight, which wasn't intended. We should have talked about crows and wasps and bees, more so probably than for the first hour of the podcast, but that's been the crack. As we said, you see the hashtag of Sienna Steps is over that past Andy's head. If I just reach, I can't because I have to put my hand there. Look, in past Andy's head and out the far side. That's where you can see the hashtag that's on there, and you get all the details on the top of it. This has been the forum. I've been your host, Phil Casey. Below me has been Shane Davern. Across this way is Ray Dicko Dickinson, new leader of the DUP, and his book is St. George's Cross when he's finished. And beside me here, sorry,
one more insecty kind of thing. Not an insect, it's a little fish, because this has put the shits up you, because I know you like going out to the 40 foot in your and getting out into your dry suit, whatever you call it, your dry row. Yeah. There's these new fish called weaver fish.
They're not new.
Look at the bastards.
I know, yeah. And they hide.
See that thing on top? Yeah, they hide in
Goes
the sand, and if you stand on that thing, you're fucked.
Yeah, and the tip that anyone would have is never go swimming near low tide, particularly towards the end of August and September, because that's when you get the lowest tides, and that's when you have all the weaver fish are always at the edge of the low tide mark, so never go swimming around that time. And then also jellyfish around that time, but we'll come back to it. Around September, August, we'll do a full jellyfish, because Dublin has some strange jellyfish, including box jellyfish, knocking around September time. Yeah, so you need to be careful. Right, that has been the podcast. That's been.
You must remember that
there with the last bit that was going on. I've been your host, Phil Casey. That's been the forum. Good night. God bless. We'll talk to you next week.
I'm supposed to put this out, Paul, on.